Welcome to the third session for the fourth module. So in this session, I will be concentrating more on the fluid conditioning and fluid conditioners and air dryers, and what is the purpose of air dryers, what are the functions of the air dryers. If the air dryers is not being placed in the pneumatic system, what it can cause to. So all these things we will be discussing about in this session. So majorly, what do you mean by fluid conditioning? So conditioning means it is only because as we know, the normal atmospheric air will also have a dust particles, the chemicals, moisture content will also be there, and it will also have some temperature. So it has to be cleaned before it has to be sent into the natural pneumatic system. That is first thing. Second thing is, even the compressed air will also have a higher temperature. If it has to be used in the pneumatic system, it has to be certainly cooled, and it has to be cleaned, and it has to be free from the moisture content. So that is what, to make all these three functions, it has to be clean, it has to be dry, and it has to be uh, cool. These to in order to do these three functions, then we call it as a conditioning or a fluid conditioning. The equipments which we are using for this conditioning system, that is what we call it as a fluid conditioners. One of the major applications of this fluid conditioners is a HVAC, the heating and ventilation and the air conditioning systems, which is the most definitely underrated in engineering applications. To keep the compressed air system in check, there are two important types of maintenance. The primarily one, it is to ensure the pneumatic air supply clean, reliable and dry at all the conditions. This is what we are just following it. This is the first one. And the second one is to carry out the program of routine and preventive maintenance, under which all control components are inspected and if necessary adjusted periodically. So in most of the cases, we always go for the first one, so that we can keep it clean, cool and dry, so that we can maintain that pneumatic systems under check. Exactly. So this, what is the, before I just go for the air conditioner, that is the air dryers, the most often question what we raise it is, why it has to be dried? No, basically it has to be cleaned. That is common sense, that we need to clean it, because the foreign particles should not damage the track of the movement of it may be a liquid or it may be a air. So the fluid movement should not be blocked, or it should not be under restriction. So that is what, it has to be cleaned. That is the first thing. But it has to be dried. Why it has to be dried? Now my dear friends, not only the atmospheric air, the air which is being taken inside the compressor, and the temperature is being increased after it is being compressed. The compressed air will also have some moisture. Must be, you know, the dew point temperature. As the dew point temperature decreases, because of the free expansions, how, where and all the free expansions can occur? The free expansions can occur in valves, the free expansion can occur in the pipes, and the free expansions can also occur in the actuators. Due to these free expansions, what happens? The dew point temperature decreases. If the dew point temperature decreases, what happens? These water droplets will mixes, or will be placed in the passage, or in the movement of the pipe channels. Is it clear? No, even in the compressed air, the RH value, that is the moisture content, the RH value signifies the moisture content in the compressed air will be of 100%. So if at all, if we don't remove this, the moisture content, what it can cause? It can cause it can cause a few troubles, like it can create the disturbance in the flow of the air. The flow passage for the air may not be the clean, it may disturb. The second one is, it may cause the oxidation, or maybe the removal of the material, or a damaging of the pipe material, or that, what in other words we can rate as a corrosion may happen because of the continuous usage. This water is a deadly dangerous for corrosion. So it may leads to corrosion. That is the second point. And then the most important thing is, because of this, the water droplets or particles which may mix with the oil content of the lubricant, and this water particle may also mix with the dust particles, or this water particles may also mix with a fine internally generated particles, maybe because of the friction, or maybe because of the movement of the moving particles. It may mix with that and it may form like a gel like structure which restricts for the movement of the moving elements, and then it may also restrict the valves ports. Basically these valve ports are be very minute. It will be very minute, small, maybe 1 or 2 or 4 dia will be there, maximum of 2 or 3 diameter will be there. If the small particles which go and occupies that space, so definitely it will affect or it will block the valve passages. It may be at the entry or it may be at the exit, but certainly these valves, I have already told you, these valves are called as the brain of the pneumatic systems. If these have been blocked, then the pneumatic system doesn't work out. So these are all will occur because of the moisture content which is present in the air. And we can also say one of the interesting thing is these water particles may evaporate in extreme temperature conditions, or it may freeze in the extreme cold conditions. Once it has been freeze, it becomes an ice. Ice is becomes a tougher material for removing the movement of the particles. Is that clear? So that will cause the major trouble for the pneumatic systems. So that is the reason why we should always dry the air of the which is coming from the compressor before it enters into the receiver. Once if it reaches to the receiver, it will mix up with the previously stored pressurized air along with the fresh air. So it will damage the quality of the compressed air or the pressurized air. The compressed air can, that is what we just mentioned, under right conditions it can reach the dew point temperature and condense it into a harmful liquid. I don't say it is not harmful liquid like it. It is harmful liquid for the operation of the pneumatic systems, my dear friends. So this leads to the contamination of the product equipment. It can cause the frozen pipes, leads to corrosion and leads to other issues, the other problems, performance problem. The purpose of this air dryer is to suppress the dew point. That means dew point we have to suppress it. So that is the reason why we use the air dryers. So basically now I can define what is an air dryer. Air dryer is a one equipment or a device which has been used to dry or remove the moisture content which is present in the compressed air. That is what we call it as an air dryer. Compressed air can contain moisture which under right conditions it has to be removed. That is one thing. And the compressed air dryer is a piece of equipment designed to separate water vapor or a moisture. And this process we also call it as a dehumidify. That means we are just removing humidity which is just present in the air. That is what from the industrial purpose of the air. Now one of the air dryer is a normal regular air dryer. I am just showing it out. In case of wet filters, wet filters that is wet filters and dry filters is been used in the air dryers. So this is a one section wherein which, as we can see it here, the air, as long as the air has got a moisture, it will be heavier. So it just makes an entry into this air dryer, and because of the presence of this deflector cones, these deflector cones makes this air movement into swirling action. Due to this swirling actions, this is a one advantage of this deflector cones. Because of this deflector cones, it just makes the air to deflect and swirling action, and then it strikes the baffle plates. Once this baffle plates has been struck, because of this swirling action as well as to the baffle plates, it just comes in contact with this the baffle plates. The water content will be condensed onto this plates. Once it has been condensed onto this, it loses, the air will loses its moisture and it makes itself free to move upwards. Whereas this condensate, or what we call it as a condensed liquid, will be will be collected downwards because of the gravity. It just falls downwards and it will be collected through the drain plug. Now this air which is being free to the movement will be sent out through the filter, and this filter can be a dry filter within through which it will also takes a few small amount of a water particles or moisture. If it is been left out there, it will also be restricted there, and the dry clean air will go out of the compressor, and then it will make an entry into the receiver tank. This is a normal functioning of this air dryer. Now this air dryer, there are different types of air dryers are also there. Desiccant air dryer is also there. That is what we call it as the chemical air dryers. And then we also have a refrigerant air dryers are also there. Air dryers, as I have already told you, even in air conditioning system also, HVAC, we use this air dryers. One of the chemical air dryer is where the principle of working of this chemical dryer is one. What they do it is, they will have a layer by layer chemicals in the movement of the in the passage or a movement of the air. They will have a small layer by layer of chemicals, and these chemicals are the one which absorbs the moisture content in the atmosphere and condense it. They go liquid. What are those chemicals? A few chemicals are like sodium, a calcium carbonate, calcium chloride, and then a lithium. There are the three chemicals which have been used, which absorbs. The beauty of these chemicals are the one, they absorb the moisture content in the atmosphere and then they liquefy. Then they will be collected at the bottom. Is that clear? So as long as there is a moisture, they will keep absorbing that moisture content. Now that is one better example. What I can give you is, my dear friend, you might have seen a new footwears, a boxes, or a new maybe materials like a toys or a new any materials. If you purchase which have been kept it in the box, will be always placed 2 packets of some chemicals, maybe 2 like tablets, like material will be there. 2 packets of chemicals will be always placed in the box. In most of the cases we see it in leather items where that should not get fungus. This fungus will always happens when there is a more moisture content. So in order to remove that fungus content, what the suppliers will do it is, they will keep 2 or 3 packets of these chemicals. So what they do it is, if there is any excess of moisture content, if the RH factor is more in the air, it will absorb that moisture content and makes the surrounding air dry. That is the idea behind of it. So what they will do it is, in the chemical dryers, actually these chemicals, what we use it, will effectively reduces it. What they will do it is, they will have a layer by layer or maybe a single layer. They will have it. Through this, the compressed air is being allowed to move. While it is moving through these chemicals, what they will do it is, the moisture content will be absorbed by these chemicals and they will be reduced into liquids, and then it drops down, whereas the dry air passes away from that. So the droplet or the condensate will be collected back. So this is the beauty of this chemical dryers. So this chemical dryer uses a purpose of passing compressed air over a bed of deliquescent chemicals. So these chemicals are called as a deliquescent chemicals because they absorb the moisture content, are saturated with the excess moisture from the air. The chemicals used in this purpose are those with a natural capacity for water attraction. They always have a higher tendency of attracting the water particles in the air. Okay, that is the reason why we just take these chemicals as an air dryers. Okay, the desiccant compressed air dryer uses a special material called desiccant to dry the compressed air. So these are all called as a desiccant. These desiccant are nothing but the layers which have been formed or been made by these chemicals, which we call it as a desiccant one. This desiccant is made of material that really likes of water, and the water sticks to the surface of the desiccants. Every once in a while, this desiccant needs to be dried or generated to remove the water again. That is the one advantage of that. This work on the different principle. Basically, these desiccant air dryers, they absorb moisture from the air stream and onto a desiccant material in a reversible process. They they produce a low dew points, so that they are a good choice for sub-freezing conditions or when processing require extremely dry air. Two types of for heatless and heated one. Actually, even in this also we get two types. One is a heatless and heated one, desiccant dry one we will get it. Actually, in what happens in a normal conditions is heatless desiccant dryers host a desiccant material into two adjacent tanks, one next to the other, called the drying towers, and then generating the towers. Drying towers and then the generating towers. Moisture content in the compressed air flow into the drying tower first, and then it passes over and binds it to the porous desiccants. This porous material or a porous one which is been made up of these chemicals extremely dry, makes it the air extremely dry with a dew point of -40 to maybe -100 Fahrenheit, which exits dryers. So up to that extent it will makes it dry. And heated desiccant dryers are the one which like of desiccant towers removes the moisture from the same flowing air, which reduces the dew point up to -40 with the same related to the same one. They will temporary dew point, it will reduce it. Now the next one is next type of air dryer is a refrigerated air dryer. As the principle of refrigeration as we know it, it just removes the water by cooling the compressed air temperature and causing condensation. It is just provoking the condensation by cooling the compressed air. What it will do, it is the whatever the moisture content which is there in the compressed air, it just condenses it by an alternate moisture separator, collects at the liquid water and sends it to a drain. So the refrigerated dryers typically generate air with pressure dew points between maybe around 40 Fahrenheit. They tend to be used in a general plant operations. They may not be suitable in most of the cases. Critical processing that demand extremely dry may not be suitable for this type of refrigerated air dryers, and they are not designed for circuits that see sub-freezing temperatures. Okay, refrigerated dryers are considered fairly economical to purchase and operate. They fall into two categories. One is a cycling and the other one is a non-cycling one. The one which I am showing it in the figure is a cycling one. As the name implies itself, one type runs intermittently and the other runs continuously. Users, it depends upon the applications, like a cycling dryers which only powers up to the meet the demand, whereas thus the reduce the electricity consumption. That is the only purpose. Now if you see this structure, it is something like, you might have seen air conditioners. The principle of air conditioners are a refrigeration system, wherein which if you consider the topmost portion as an air which is just entering it over here, it is just which is been entering it over here, and refrigerant which is just taking away, which has been taking away the heat in that compressed air, makes it condensed. That is the reason why we always say it as a air conditioner. That is a major difference. I always ask my students the difference between an air cooler and an air conditioner. Air cooler is the one which just takes the moisture content in the water and blows the air with the moisture, whereas the air conditioner is the one which makes it clean, which makes it dry. And that means whatever the coolness, say for example, even in the winter season, if you want a hot air, it will give you the air without any or a minimum moisture content in that. How it is does? The same conditioner, how it can be done? The same air conditioner which is being used will be to make a cool air, as well as it is also used to make it as a dry air. So that is what even in our vehicles also, if you keep it the knob for the hot, it will remove the moisture content and it just gives out only the dry air with a minimum moisture content, or at least without moisture content. Now my dear friends, as we can see it here, the wet air is been made to enter into the upper portion. When this wet air will enter into this portion, it just condenses as it just passes through the heat exchanger. Now heat exchanger is a one device which exchanges the heat between two fluids with or without in contact. Now here it is without contact. Now this heat exchanger is not in contact with the other one. Is it clear? So what it will do, it is in a wet air, it just makes it to condense it by the movement of the refrigerant in the other parallel section. So the heat exchanger is taking the heat from the compressed air and just condensing the moisture content in that, making it a dry air to the receiver one. Thus collected whatever the condensate is been taken away from the dryer, which is being shown at the right middle corner, middle one. Okay, now the liquid refrigerant will be keep flowing it continuously. Okay, this is the generally idea behind of this refrigerated air. These refrigerated air dryers are not extensively used because the air which is getting dried here is not to that extent complete to the conventional air dryer and to this chemical air dryers. Chemical air dryers are significantly makes the air completely dry compared to this refrigerated air dryers. Okay, so this is the idea behind of this different air dryers, but the purpose of the any type of air dryers is to make it clean and dry and cool before it enters into the receiver. Now there are few MCQ questions are there which I just wanted to discuss. The basic function of the air dryer in a compressor is, first one, is it to prevent the dust from entering compressor? No, it is not to prevent the dust. To prevent the dust, there is a filter is been used before the compressor. Storage and smoothing of pulsating air output? No. Storage and smoothing of pulsating air output is done by the receiver. This is the function of the receiver. The A is a function of a filter and the second one is a function of the receiver. And the third one, reduce the temperature of the air before it enters and next state to increase the efficiency. Air dryer is not to reduce the temperature of that. This is the function of a cooler. Obviously, my dear friends, in order to reduce the temperature of the compressed air, it is a function of a cooler. So the A is a function of filter, B is a function of the receiver, and the third one, it's a function of a cooler, and the fourth one, to remove the remaining traces of the moisture after cooler. So this is the correct answer for the air dryer functions. Okay, the purpose of air dryer is to remove moisture. Yes, undoubtedly. Remove oil? No, it is not. And remove dust? No. Above all, it is absolutely wrong. So it is A. Now, even we may get doubt that this moisture mixing with the oil, how it is spoiled, because we are not using any oil in this pneumatic system. This is not a hydraulic system, this is a pneumatic system. But my dear friends, whenever there is a moving parts, it has to be lubricated. It has to be lubricated. Now what happens in a hydraulic systems is the working fluid or the working medium itself is an oil. So obviously itself it acts like a lubricant. Whereas here it is a air. Air is not a liquid. It cannot be used so effectively as an lubrication. So for the lubrication purpose we may use a small amount of the lubricants like in oil state. So these oils traces may mix with the water content and they form a tough, rigid like structures, which we call it as a, like a gel like structures. They not only restrict the movement of the air but also they restrict the movement of the mechanical parts. So that is the biggest problem with this moisture content. Is it clear? That is the reason why we always remove this air dryer, the moisture content in the air dryers by the use of air dryers. The moisture content in the air is required for the smooth operation. Moisture content, is it required for the smooth operation? No, absolutely wrong. It is actually an opposite one. We don't. It is actually, it is not for the smooth operation. It affects the working of pneumatic system. It is certainly right. Okay, and none of the above. It is no. Both A and B, no. It is only for the it is B, that is the moisture content in the air. It will affect the working of the system. It will not give any smooth operation. Is it not? Normally dryer consumes, what is this dryer consumes? Is it a air? What type of air it is? My compressed air, moist air, and then is it both moist and compressed air? No, it is just a compressed air. Is it clear? Now even that is what in most of the cases uh, the if even if you keep even if you keep a small handkerchief to a silencer just for 10 seconds and leave it, how much smoke that will be collected over there. Though it is dry, it will have a gel like structures. So these chemicals will certainly affect the pneumatic systems. That is the reason why we always intend to go for the air dryers. Air dryers plays a significant role in the performance of the pneumatic systems. No, this air compression of the humidity and dew points of air increases. That is, during the compression, obviously there will be humidity increase in the humidity and the dew point. To bring the level of this humidity and dew point to a reasonable level, that means to certain extent it has to be brought down. The excess moisture is to be removed. In a bulk air system, the air is passed through a simple cooler which aids in condensing the moisture and is being drained off. Okay, that is the one. The air which enters into the inlet of the unit undergoes a sudden reversal in its direction of the flow and the swirling action, which I have shown it in the figure. This swirling action makes it possible for the removing of the maximum content of the moisture content in this. Okay, so that is how this air dryer will play a major role in this. So in the next session I will be concentrating more on FRL units, where I will be talking in depth how this lubrication and regulations and the filtration will be concentrating. No, that is the reason why I am not talking much about this filters over here. So once these filters, regulators and lubricators, they are all called as the brothers and sisters. So they plays a major role. So in order to remove only the moisture content in the compressed air, this air dryers is been extensively used. Okay. So in the next session, I'll be talking about FRL. Thank you.